Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for hitting that play button for another episode of the Newcomer podcast, where I am on a mission to encourage 1 million teachers weekly. So I enjoy sitting down and having conversations with teachers to share their stories and talk about the work that they do, because it matters, ladies and gentlemen. It matters so much, and we need it. You know, I love to say that I meet many people who decide where they're going to live around their schools, around schools. So who runs the schools? How do schools happen? Teachers. I mean, there's other people who play a part in that, right? But teachers are the foundation. And today we have the one and only Denae Phipps. Am I saying that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Did I say it right?
You did, yeah.
Yes, because I messed up some names. We're done, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening in.
No, you'd be surprised. Starbucks is like, Denae Phillips? I'm like, I think you mean me. There's no S, no L's. We're good.
Yeah, how are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. I am doing so good. Thank you for sitting down with me. We tried a few times.
Yeah.
Things just happened. And
We made it work.
it made you work. I don't give up. I don't give up. I'm grateful that you didn't give up. Let's just jump right in this. Tell us what school you're from and how you got into teaching.
I'm at U.S. Grant High School on the south side of Oklahoma City.
South side. I had to say that.
I went to college to be an educator. My degree's in Spanish education. I applied at Grant to be a Spanish teacher, went in for an interview, and they were like, that job doesn't exist anymore. Found out about ESL, which is English as a second language. So I work primarily with first year in-country students from all over. We've had students this year. We have Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Venezuela. I always get nervous I'm going to forget one. Peru, Colombia. They're just everywhere. So it's merging of cultures and learning to work with a different group of kids every single year, things like that. So it's fun.
Good, yeah. So, you know, now that I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about this, listening to you, English as a second language, for some reason, I only think about Spanish speaking, and it may be because that's what has dominated our communities, meaning like I know more Spanish speaking than any other language.
Yeah.
And so the only thing I think about, but you gotta, when you say English second language, they could be speaking any other language.
Yes. And the term changes. And so I think right now it's EL, so English learners, because like my students from Guatemala, English isn't their second language. For some of them, it's their third or fourth. So they're multilingual learners, but not everybody knows what it is. I'm like, I'm an EL teacher. What is that? I'm like, oh, ESL, they get that one. And then there's just so many spinoffs. And based on where you teach, like some of the north side schools will have the Bali and Vietnamese and Chinese and Spanish and just the melting pot of languages. And you forget how diverse and how many languages are spoken until you're like, oh, they're all in my classroom. Let's learn English. And hi.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, regardless of the language that they speak, you're still teaching them all the same.
Yes.
Right? The approach of how you teach them English is the exact same. Can you give me what are some ways that you help these kids learn English?
So my class specifically is phonics, and we start at the beginning of the school year, and I say, here's the deal. You guys are high school kids. I understand that. But we're learning elementary Spanish, because there was one year I had a student that was like, Miss, I took my homework home, and then I was sitting down. I look over at my little brother, had the same thing. He's in kindergarten. I said, oh, man, I'm so sorry. Like, I get that, and that's so frustrating for you, but you're both learning kindergarten English.
Yeah.
Like, I can't throw you into, oh, you're a ninth grader, here's ninth grade English. Like, there's a reason you're with me. I call them my babies. They're my newcomer babies. We start kindergarten, ABC alphabet every single day until they're like, Miss, I sing this song in my sleep. I'm like, okay, I'm almost there. Until you're like singing it every minute that you're like working around in life, that's when we'll stop listening to this song. But it's alphabet sounds and word pronunciation and figuring out, because especially in Spanish, because I do speak Spanish, that I can realize that, okay, vowel sounds are opposite in Spanish. They look a little different. They sound different. Letters may seem the same, but when you're pronouncing a word or reading it, you're going to get the vowel wrong if you don't know what it is. And so, the class is called Foundations. And so recently I've started, I draw a house on a board, and then we're like, how do we build a house? Like, let's build it on a mountain. Like, but you can't. I said, well, why not? And they're like, well, because the house is going to fall down.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, why? I'm like on a mountain. That's so cool. Like I'm so high up in the sky. And like, but it'll fall down because it's not like flat. I said, okay, so let's build it on a hill. Like, no, miss, it has to be flat. Like it has to have a strong base. Like, I'm sorry, what? It has to have a strong base. I'm like, you know what? That's a foundation. So do you know why this class is called Foundations? Like we're building that foundation to language, and it starts with the ABCs. It starts with the basics. It starts very minimal. But then like we just had them do their first presentations last week, and they'd be like, Miss, how do I say this word? And then they're like, I did my presentation and I did it in English. You did. See, it's not so scary. You can do it.
Yeah. That's really cool. Man, that's, there's so many things that you just don't think about sometimes. And yeah, you teach an adult, and if they come home with a 5-year-old, they don't know English. They just don't know English. And so you're teaching them the same.
Yeah.
But it's also funny that they recognize that in a way that's like, ooh, I'm learning the same thing as my 5-year-old brother or whatever.
And I had never thought about it until a student told me. And so every year now I'm like, okay, I do want to preface there is a chance that your younger siblings are on the same level as you. It doesn't mean that they're smarter than you or that you're not as smart, but like we are all learning at the same level. And granted, I will have some kids that are little that have English experience versus ones that don't. And so then we differentiate and get into all of that stuff. But it's still just kind of fun to start out with, okay, today's the alphabet song, guys.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. Now, here's the thing that I'm thinking about, though. They may all speak different languages. How do you go about, like, when you're saying to them, well, your 5-year-old brother or younger brother may, how do you convey that to them if they're all speaking different languages?
I use a lot of pictures in my classroom, or I talk with my hands. Or we'll just kind of work through things. Again, my class is very vocal, so it's just like repeat after me. And so we'll talk through, and our curriculum breaks down in the alphabet. There's 26 letters. We break them down into letter groups, focus on a letter group, that sound, just kind of keep honing in. That it's one of those, like, you cannot know anything, but by the end of the class, you're like, I can make one sound. I'm like, that's all I need. Like, if you can make one sound, that's great. Like, we're successful. That we kind of do bite-sized chunks, a lot of pictures, and like we'll have a picture of a girl and a boy, or we'll talk in our class and be like, okay, so he has a sweater. Okay, sweater. This is a sweater. What color is the sweater? They may not know colors yet, but I can be like, you know what? This is yellow. This is a yellow sweater. And I could talk, like, there's red chairs in here. I could talk about a yellow sweater for 45 minutes straight and come up with new things.
Wow.
To talk about. And it's a skill I think that I had to learn. And again, it's very elementary, but and I didn't realize this until I became a parent too with little kids, that it's the same thing as teaching a little kid English. You don't just talk to a baby and be like, you're going to speak English tomorrow. It's, oh, you want to sit? And you start with small bite-sized chunks, and then it gets bigger and bigger as they get older. It's the same teaching them. They're not babies like age-wise, but their language capability is right there too. So it's like, we'll just kind of expand. Then the next day I'm like, okay, yesterday we talked about A. Today we're going to talk about E. A makes a as in apple. Everybody say apple. And they're like, apple. I'm like, okay, come on. Apple. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, you guys have to get there. And we had conferences the other day, and one of the family members was like, so he's been singing this song a lot. I was like, oh, which one? And he's like, the apple, elephant. I'm like, oh yeah, no, we make up songs as we go. And it's like, I tell him, go home, clean dishes for your family, sing these songs. Like, that's how we're going to learn it.
That's good. And so, how did you learn? Like you said, you kind of learned some of this stuff on the fly. Is it like you're just sitting at home thinking through, like, okay, how am I going to get this across to them? Or are you Googling stuff? Or how are you learning to be able to teach them this stuff?
I think it's kind of a mix of both. Like, I joke around. I had the education background. I went to college for it. I sat in all of the classes. But it never really prepares you to actually be in the classroom, because every year kids are different. Every day kids are different. And so when I had that realization of, this is a very elementary class, I have to get buy-in, because if the kids don't buy into what I'm teaching them, they're not going to care. So I have to make it over the top. I have to make it super corny. Even one class to a different, this year we joke, I'm like, they're opposite. We have cohorts, they're grouped together, they travel together all day. I'm like, we have cohort A and we have cohort B, and they are complete opposite. So what works for one group does not work for the other. So you have to work on those relationships with the kids to get to know them a little bit, to know, okay, yes, this is going to work for them. I can be super corny and super cheesy. This group seems to be more number oriented and mathematical. So I have to kind of provide the reasoning behind it and tell them why it matters and why pronouncing it this way is important. And you don't want to go out somewhere and mispronounce a word that you know and then feel bad about it later. So it's, you kind of have to, I learned that I had to really critique myself and change things a little bit to make it fun. I'm like, how would I want to learn if I was doing this?
Yeah. And I hear you talking about groups like cohort A, cohort B, and trying to figure out each group. But it's also like almost each individual kind of learns differently, right?
Yes.
And how do they get it? And so, and in that kind of setting, like you almost have to get at each, I mean, in all classrooms, I'm sure you kind of got to get to each student's level. But I feel like it's even more so when you're talking about trying to teach them, but maybe not.
It can be. That's the fun thing is the first couple weeks of school, it's so our kids come in kind of staggered. So we'll have like 3 at the beginning of the school year. Well, I can't start on day 1 with curriculum when I have 3 kids, because if I start with the letter A, I'm going to teach the letter A for 2 days. And then day 3 of school, I'll have 4 new kids that have not learned the letter A. And so it's just, we do a lot of classroom bonding. And so the first thing that they do is create an interactive notebook. I welcome them in. I say, hey, come on, sit down. You're going to take this. You're going to cut it out. We're going to glue it, put it on the paper. Take as much time, as little time as you need to do it. I then sit and I just observe and watch them. I see how they group themselves. I see who they talk to. I see which kids aren't talking. I see which kids are shy. I see which kids are super active. And kind of use that as my observation time. And then when I get into curriculum, I know, okay, this one is going to probably struggle a little bit. They don't have as many friends, or they seem off today, or they can come in and I'm like, wait, they're not talking to their friends. So something has happened. And really just kind of always being observant as to who's doing what and what happens that I know. But then technology is also super great because everything's done on a computer, so they can send me their responses. I see on my screen whether or not they got it. I can go around. I use sign language for letters, and I can either critique like the class as a whole, or go around and just like nudge on the back and then give the sign language letter, and they can change it and see, so that we're always trying to encourage growth. And I'll be like, hold on, let's stop because someone is wrong. We always try to make it that safe environment, but knowing that each kid is going to learn different, and they're not going to get it right every single time. And that's what I tell them. And I'm like, it's okay. Make mistakes. When I speak in Spanish, there are so many mistakes. Like, it is okay.
How long do you have the students for? Like, is it just 1 year or 2, or until they speak English?
I have them for 1 year, for 47 minutes. This year they have a double block English class, which is basically 2 hours of the grammar and writing. And then they have 1 hour phonics with me. And then I do have another group this year that's with me for 3 hours, and we just do all of it all in our like 3 hour window. And then as a Newcomer Academy, then they're put into their second year. They also still have those sheltered supports. So it's not like, okay, you've done 1 year, like you go. We just kind of try to keep them protected with teachers that use strategies that can help them understand English, but scaffold it, and kind of it starts super basic their very first year. Second year gets a little harder. Third year gets a little more harder. And then by the 4th year, they're ready to graduate, and just seeing how far they've grown and in that, like in 4 years, because I think I meant to look before I came, but I think they say it takes 5 to 7 years to learn a language. And yet we're like expecting kids to do it in under 4, and we're like, here you go. But they work so hard and they do it. And it's a graduation every time. I'm like, oh my goodness, I remember when you first started out and you're like, Miss, I can't do this. And then here you are walking across the stage. Like, I'm so proud.
And because of them being in an environment where most people are English speaking, that helps them to kind of probably get it quicker, right?
Sometimes, but our school is predominantly Hispanic or Latino. And so a lot of their classes have kids that speak Spanish. And so it's for them, they have to have the want to learn English to be successful. And so that's what we try to instill in them, is just how important it is to have that skill of being multilingual and knowing English on top of Spanish or any other languages, all the opportunities you get, and really makes them try hard and push through some of the hard days. So.
Oh, man. Yeah, I was sitting there in my mind thinking, man, at least they're in an environment to where every majority speaking English, but it's still not true. I just looked at a stat. We're doing this feasibility study because a nonprofit that I do work for, we're looking at starting a pre-K school.
Okay.
And starting with just one class. But we looked at the studies. We're looking at Orlando and Oklahoma City, and I can't remember, it's 50-something% of students in Oklahoma City are Spanish speaking. And I was like, and then it was like 20% African American. Then I'm like, oh my, this is completely off from what I'm thinking in my head in those numbers. But the crazy thing is Orlando and Oklahoma City almost match identically.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I would have thought like there'd be more in Orlando just because of the close proximity to but no, yeah, it was almost the same. I was like, wow, but I had never thought about the majority of students not being English speaking students, or let alone Caucasian, really. And so I was like, wow.
Yeah, almost 50% of our population is identified as ELL at my school, which means that at some point they've been a second language learner, second or third language learner, and are in the ELL program and flagged and have to take tests and everything. And so it's something I think that often gets overlooked a little bit. But
and I'm thinking like to myself, like the way that we have structured education was not based around majority not speaking English.
Correct.
And because of that, I don't know if that changes how we should go about doing school. And if so, is that something that we're looking at now? Do we have to go about doing school differently, or no, we just keep doing it the way that we've always done it?
I think it should change. And I think bringing COVID into it as well, like that changed school dramatically. And then we do have so many people coming that speak different languages that the tests and everything don't always line up. And so trying to figure out ways to change education a little bit, I think would be helpful. But where to start with that, I don't know. It'd have to be a team of, there's just so many ideas out there that trying to figure out the best ones to go with it would be hard.
I can only imagine, right? It just being on the outside looking in, we can always have like, just do it this way. But I've been on the inside of something. I'm like, well, it doesn't work like that. I wish it did. I wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
And I know this is not that easy, but, oh my God, I could probably stay on this whole, like, because I'm also thinking like, I never thought about how many students spoke more than one language. And so it's not ESL, it's EL. And so we may come back to that if we have time. But let me ask you this, like when you were younger, what were you thinking about dreaming of being one day?
So I either wanted to be Lorelai from the Gilmore Girls and own a bed and breakfast, or my mom was a teacher. So it was just always kind of like teaching was just kind of where I would go. I would always go to school with her, and it was just kind of my happy place that I was like, I want to be the teacher that I had some good teachers, but I also had some bad ones. And so I wanted to be the teacher that a kid could look back on and be like, you know what, they helped me. Versus me sometimes where I'm like, oh, remember that teacher, when I'm like bonding with friends that I haven't seen in a couple of years. We're like, oh yeah, that one. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that teacher. I want to be the one that was like, no, I had a bad day, and she was there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's cool. How long did your mom teach, and what did she teach?
She retired about 2 years ago. She was a math teacher, and I forget, she taught a long time. I don't remember how many years. She will let me know after she watches this.
She's like, how do you not know?
Sorry, Mom.
Now, being a child of a teacher, like it's interesting that you thought I want to be a teacher versus because of the hours. You're not their only child. Now they got kids, depending on what grade, they may have multiple classes, or let's say that they just have their elementary and they have the same 30, but now they kind of rotate depending on how many kids are in the class. But you had to share your mom with so many.
I did. And then I would go to a different school, or they'd be like, oh, you're Mrs. Packard's daughter. I'm like, yep, that's me. But it was always fun. And it helped me like make friends or like know people when I would switch different schools around. That it just kind of made it a fun thing, but it also held me, I think, to a higher standard of, wait, I have to turn my homework in because if I
Yes.
don't, they're going to tell my mom. So
yes. Yes, that's. I
Gotta
was
get it
just
done.
about to ask, like, what were some of the things like being a child of a teacher versus not being a child of a teacher? What are some things that you feel like were definitely different for you?
I think just the requirement for school and just how important it was. I remember sometimes I'd be like, man, I wish I could just like go do something else or like not have to do my homework or not read this book. But it showed me how important education was. And so then I can now, looking back, I'm like, no, it was important. I see some of my friends and I would see them struggle in college. Be like, wait, am I doing college wrong? Because I'm not doing all-nighters. Like I got my homework done. Like I don't understand. And so it helped me be a better student and then just kind of develop work ethic and kind of thought process skills a little bit different, to where then now I feel like I'm able to catch on to things a little bit easier. Because again, she was a math teacher. So we always kind of thought with the math skills in mind, and like we would go shopping and we would be doing math. And so when the kids asked me like, how is this relevant? Like, I don't need this outside of school. I'm like, but do you? Like, even though you have a phone in your pocket, like this math is still important and science is important. And because if you go home and you're trying to clean your house and you mix things together, chemistry, it could be bad. Like,
Yeah.
could not go well if you don't do it correctly.
So these things matter.
So school is important.
Yeah, that's good. So you get ready to come out of college. Do you go straight into teaching?
I took a year off and worked at a like counseling office for a little bit. Just I needed a break from teaching and just kind of really deciding, is that what I want? And kind of just trying to get a feel for things. Just out of the post college life, I struggled a little bit with my with my student teaching experience. It just not going the way that I wanted to. I wanted to be an elementary teacher my whole life. Like that was it. I got put into an AP high school Spanish class. And I was just like, this is a lot for me. Like I didn't do AP in high school. Like I didn't always feel prepared. And so I was like, wait, this is rough. This is not at all what I thought it was going to be. Give me a minute. But then I ended up finding my way back and then get the elementary class just in a high school setting. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Had I known this existed, I would have done this the whole time. Like, this is what I need. These kids give me life and they make me laugh. And so we got there eventually. It just took a minute.
Gotcha. So do that year off, then you go into teaching. Do you remember your first day of class?
I do. I had one student and we played bingo because I was like, I don't know what else to do. I was like, hi, how are you? It's my first day. I'm very overwhelmed.
Let's play bingo.
She didn't speak any English. She was very shy. And so I was like, well, we're just going to slowly get to know each other over the course of the next time block and then just go from there. And then after that, I was good to go. And
now, did you have her all 4 years?
Just for the year, but I would see her until for the next couple of years.
I got you.
So
got you. That's cool. Tell us what it's like to be a teacher and have a child. Like I know, so you kind of had this experience where you were the child and your mom was a teacher. Now you're a teacher and you have a child.
Yes.
Like, what is the balance like? What are some things that we may not, as not being teachers with children, what are some things that we're not thinking about, but you like, oh my goodness?
So I do feel like I have higher expectations of teachers. So my husband and I were foster parents. So we currently have one and he's not old enough for school yet, but I'm like, hey, come on, teachers, this is how it should be done.
Yeah.
Like, but wait, they don't always have the training. But when we would have foster children or children in foster care that were in their schools and everything, we would be getting phone calls and be like, hey, your child. Like, oh no. Okay. So elementary teachers do so much that they don't get credit for. They put up with a lot. But really, when a parent comes to you with a concern, it's not them trying to be difficult. There's actually something there. And so when we would be received with teachers that would listen to us and understand that, like, we're not trying to make your job difficult. Like, this is us trying to help you, that if you'll do what we say and, like, put in these strategies or give him like a minute to sit by himself or let him hold on to something. It's not us trying to like derail your entire classroom. We're trying to help you regulate him to save everything else from falling apart in your classroom. And then having very supportive principals was amazing for us too. I joke now that at the time I was like besties with one of our principals for a year because every day we would get a phone call or we would get an email and like, we're just best friends. We're on each other's speed dials, but it wasn't ever like your child is horrible, come get them. It was your child is struggling today. How can we help? That it always made us feel better because being a teacher, I was like, there's so much pressure on me to make sure that I have the good kid and that I have the kid that doesn't do anything crazy in the classroom, that to then have somebody that was like, no, he's just struggling today. Today's a bad day. It's okay. And if tomorrow's a bad day, it doesn't matter because it's a new day. We're implementing new things. And so being a parent now, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure that he listens in school, but I also want to make sure that I have a good relationship with his teacher so that when the time comes and we need to handle tough stuff, it's not like, hey, you've never seen me before and today's our first day meeting after I don't know what he did.
Yeah, that building relationships definitely allows for those harder conversations to be easier. And so just what are some tips for parents to be able to build a good relationship with their students, with their child's teacher?
I would say if you're able to, conferences are a great way. I do try to reach out, whether through text or phone call, kind of at the beginning of the year, and just say, hey, I'm your teacher, your child's or student's teacher. The last couple years with my school, we've done what we call Newcomer packets. So it has teacher bios on it and it gives a little bit, trying to make teachers more human. Because I think sometimes people forget. They're like, oh, they're just a teacher. They're not there. But we're like, we do things outside of school. So trying to find a way to connect with parents and because school can be terrifying for parents. You don't know what they went through, if they had a good history or if a school is a safe place for them or if some of their worst things happened in a school. Like, you don't know.
Yeah.
And so we want to make them feel safe. So we provide resources and information about who their teachers are and who is your child spending time with. And just kind of try to reach out. If you have concerns, let teachers know beforehand, or like, we're all here to help. We're a team. We're not up against each other. We are supposed to be working together. We pretty much split time. Your child is with you half the time, your child's at school the other half, that if we can work together, it's in the best interest of the kids.
That's good. What teacher, because of some of these things that you understand now, do you feel like when you were growing up probably had the greatest impact because of these things that you're mentioning?
I would say my senior English teacher, Mrs. Tews, my older brother had her, so I kind of knew her a little bit. She had a child that was the same age as my younger brother, so we knew them as family friends. But she was the one, my senior year in high school was pretty rough. Some things happened. But she was the one that the day after my parents sent an email saying, hey, something happened this weekend, Denae may not be doing well, that she was there. Like, you know what? You've got your senior portfolio that's coming up. It doesn't matter right now. That's not what matters. What matters is how you are. And I just felt like I could go anytime something was wrong. I could just sit in her classroom and it'd be fine. She is the one who taught me to really enjoy English class. And that it's just more than, it's not a subject. It's like a learning environment. And so she's the one that I would say probably impacted the most and that I talk about the most when I'm like, well, I had a teacher.
That once, yeah. And it's amazing to me. That moment was not so much about schoolwork, but something that was beyond schoolwork that she kind of came in. And that's the teachers for me. I wrote an ebook called Hello, and a lot of it's about teachers who I didn't even have them in class, right? But they were the ones who kind of, and I call it Hello because they always acknowledge me regardless of the bad day or the good days. They were always there. They were always acknowledging me. They would take me to the side. They would coach me up, and so it seems like to me that those sometimes are the ones who make the greatest impact. But then there's some kids, like we do a Guthrie America podcast where I sit down with people who are from the community, and we're always talking about teachers because it's a big part of who we are. And they'd be like, yeah, so-and-so taught me how to do equations, and it's kind of like, oh, all right. I see. It was that kind of impact. So it can be different, but it seems like most of the time it's something that's not even class related.
Yeah.
That makes a teacher have the most impact on the student. Now, I don't know if I asked you this before. Do you have a side hustle? Like, sometimes we understand teachers and the pay and trying to take care of life. Sometimes doesn't all equal out. Do you have a side hustle? Do you do something on the side?
Not currently. When I first started out, I would. Just one, I think I wasn't used to all the, I hate calling it free time because you get out of school, your contract hour ends, but it doesn't because you have lesson plans or grading or anything.
Papers.
That was just like, what do I do? I feel like
I'm going to have
to
to beef that out. That whole...
that there's it's a lot, or it's just doing different things. And so for a while I worked for an escape room just because I loved those. I still do. But it was just I feel like I should be doing something else. And then I could be grading papers while waiting for people to come and do things, or I volunteer at church, or for fun, I was master's degree. And so I did that and to work as my second job, but I had to pay for that one. I didn't get paid. It was just I always felt like I needed something, but then now I have a child. I'm I don't have time to
no, I don't have time
to do anything else. But I
and...
could see it because it's rough sometimes. But yeah. I'm thankful that my husband has a good job and we're able to make it work and not have to feel the pressure to do something else. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Do you are you one of those people who say every student should go to college? How do you do that? You work with seniors, you have seniors in your class, they're getting ready to graduate?
So I don't work with them directly. Some of them are in my homeroom, where it's just a short amount of time and I'll talk to a couple of them. I don't think so, because school, one, is difficult for everyone. You don't know background as much, or what are they able to do. I don't want to be hey, yeah, go into a lot of debt. It's great.
Yeah.
But I always try to encourage, if you want to be a mechanic, get a mechanic license. If you want to be, there are a lot of scholarships or free 2 years at a community college. Try it out. You hate it? That's fine. You can at least get a little bit, or just find something. Don't just be you know what? I can't do anything with my life. I'm just going to sit and play video games all day. Well, video games sound fun, but you're super smart. So what can we do with that? That I try to encourage at least something after high school. Don't just let high school be it. What can you do? Challenge yourself a little bit more. But that's not college for everybody, and that's okay. There's tech schools, or there's HVAC programs that you can go into, or just I'm trying to remember what I was talking to one of my kids about the other day that he could go on. I'm it's a 6-month-long program, and then you get certified, and that's all you need. You don't need a degree. You just need certification in this area. That's it. So just try it out, see what happens. And if you need to take a year off, that's cool too. But just try to have something. I don't want kids to graduate and be I don't know what I'm doing next.
Yeah.
No, I just have a direction for your life.
Yes, have a plan. Have a plan.
So,
that's what my son's about to graduate. It's before he started this year, we just let's sit down. Let's talk about the next 12 months or next 8 or 9 months, and let's set some goals. And at least you have something you're working towards. And when you transition out or whatever, it's not okay, I don't know what's next. But since we gave it a 12-month kind of game plan, that lets him come out of high school knowing kind of where he's going to go and head in a good direction. And so that's really good. What makes a great teacher? I feel like me asking you these kind of questions is kind of I feel like we're packaging together a great teacher. What makes a great teacher to you?
I think someone that realizes that education isn't the most important. It's the relationships. It's the whole package, that you're going to have anywhere from 15 to 35, maybe more kids in a room that are all different. They're not the same. They're not at the same level, and you have to figure out a way to make it work with them, and you have to they have to get along, they have to be able to learn somewhat the same thing, but you just have to make sure that they feel wanted and important. I always try to tell my kids, I'm I don't care if you didn't learn anything today, but if you leave sad, or if that I made you feel bad, let me know. That's not what I'm here for. You need to leave happy and content, and that you are valuable and important in the world.
That's good. I like that. So I asked you 5 right things to be the greatest teacher, like to be the best teacher. To 5 right things to be consistent in. And so you share with me 5 things. We'll go down this list and then we'll come back on each one. Okay. One, and I won't maybe say the whole thing, but the first one is routine. And you specifically, let me just go ahead and say it. Routine is the basis of a strong classroom and stepping stone. So you kind of have a thought there. I'll let you share that a little bit more. The next one is relationships. The third one is high communication expectations.
High communicated expectations.
Okay. And then the fourth one is safety.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fifth one is laughter.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to me about routines.
I think that's super important, just so that kids know what they're going into. When I go to this class, I know that I need to get my computer out. I need to sit down. I need to get logged in. I need to go to Canvas. I need to have my lesson ready to go. That it's not like they come in and are like, okay, what are we doing today? What are we doing today? Like, that we want that anxiety level to be as low as possible. I want them to know what they're doing, when our quizzes, when our test days, when our review days, when our project days, like what does everything look like? Are my class Mondays, it looks like this, Tuesdays are like this, that it's just that they know what they're doing, because learning a language is already like, I feel like I'm not enough because I'm not catching on as easily. But if I know that I just need to get my computer out and get logged on, I'm already winning.
Yeah.
That it's like, if you have that set routine, it makes them want to just get started. They're ready. It's not like, wait, I don't know what we're doing today. Did I miss the instructions? They know what the expectation is. They know where they're starting, what to do. And then that way, if I'm like going around saying, hey, what are we doing? Why aren't we there yet? They already know, like, oh, well, I wasn't following instructions. So I gotta get myself there.
Yeah. Got to get my game on. Relationships.
This one's my favorite. So I briefly, this one, the last one probably, briefly talked about it earlier, but I spent a lot of time at the beginning of the school year just getting to know them, observing them. Tell me where you're from, what's your story, how's your family. I give them about right before we start curriculum, I have a introduction to me, and I tell them all the things that I like and that I dislike. And I say, okay, I know we don't know each other yet, but I'm trusting you because I'm telling you right now that I do not like insects, and I do not like spiders, and I do not like the hopping crickets that are outside my classroom. So please don't bring them to me or show them to me. And if I like hop on a desk, be supportive. Don't laugh at me. Like,
don't pull out your phone.
Get it out of my room, please. But I let them into a few things. And I also I do try to keep boundaries and what they can and can't know, but it's important that they know my family and what do I do on the weekends, and try to show them this is what I do and this is what I like. And then all of a sudden you'll get, Miss, look, I went to the zoo and I saw your favorite animal, and look, and I took this. Or they'll go on a field trip and I'm like, okay, a Twizzler to anybody who can find something that's the color red and bring it back to me, or something that we're learning about, and just build relationships, because I do spend a lot of time with them, and I'm their first teacher that they see the first year. Me and my co-teacher, we're basically like a team that they're with us all day. And they do have other teachers, and I love our team. But they are really with us, and we see them. And then until they graduate, they're always in the hall. We're always checking on them. That it's just that relationship is really the stronghold. And then I feel like we can learn better if we have that relationship.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, it's just a teacher.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, she actually cares.
Yeah.
And she remembers that if oh, you were gone because you weren't feeling well. How are you today? Like, oh wait, she remembered me, or she noticed that I was gone.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Number 3, high communicated expectations.
So I think this is one that we always kind of talk about in our ELL meetings, is just because they're learning a second language doesn't mean that they need low expectations. They need to be held to the same high expectation as everyone else. It just needs to be communicated. And I think this is a life skill one too, because I've had to learn this the hard way, that I think a lot of expectations are unspoken. And so you need to communicate what you want them to do, whether it's like for me, what I want my husband to do, or what I want my child to do, or what I want my team of teachers to do, or what I want my children, my students to do. Like, I have to tell them, this is what I expect you to do. And not be like, oh, after the fact, you didn't do what I wanted you to do. Sorry, you didn't know what that was, but you failed. I think it's better to over communicate, but they still need those high expectations of getting work turned in on time, getting things accomplished, putting in 100% of their work. Or if they're not at 100%, like at least put in whatever you can. If you're a 10% day, put in 10% of effort, just do something.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. Yeah. Expectations are so important. That's one of the things that we teach whenever we do a retreat for couples, and it's such an important part. Number 4, safety.
Yes. Just knowing it's not always all of them, but a majority of them are running for a reason from their country. And so we never always know what that is up front, but I want them to feel safe in my classroom, in our school, that like regardless of what's going on, you're safe here and you're okay. Like you will be protected. We've got you. You don't need to be scared here. Like you can have those scared feelings. We'll be here to talk about it, or we can find somebody that you can talk to about it. But school is not a place that you need to feel frightened of. And we want you to feel safe, because if you feel safe, then you're able to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be very challenging to come in and learn when you're sitting there in fear. You know, it's kind of going back to, I like your routine as far as giving them the things they need to do, because one of the things you said, they come in and they're nervous, and it's kind of like the fear of the unknown, right?
Yeah.
And so just going back to the first routine thing, and it's also a matter of safety too. Like I feel safe. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. And so, yeah, so good. Number 5, laughter, which is probably going to be my favorite.
So at the end of like my lessons are in chunks. And so we'll teach something, and then we're always supposed to check for understanding. And so I always say preguntas, comentarios, dudas, chistes, which is like questions, comments, concerns, jokes. They never say anything. And so I added chistes, the laughter, jokes, kind of recently within the last couple of years, just because they will always ask for a joke or something. And English jokes are very difficult. Sometimes I'm like, you guys should get this. I'm like, wait, no, this doesn't make sense. It's not the same. And so I can use jokes as a way to make laughter, which makes you feel safe. It makes you feel comfortable, but it's also a teaching experience. And so they always expect jokes and have different ones every day, and they'll start bringing me ones. Or this year, my kids make me feel so good because my jokes are really bad. They're like the Laffy Taffy ones.
Is that where you get them from?
That, or just Google really corny jokes. And so like my favorite that I think is good, again, because I teach elementary stuff, I'm like, what did 0 tell to 8? Like, what? And so I draw on the board a 0 and an 8. I'm like, okay, so what did 0 say to the number 8? Nice belt. And they sit there and they think about it. And so then I illustrate it and I draw it. And I'm like, okay, so this right here is a belt. We're going to put the belt on 0. What happens to 0? They're like, oh, it became an 8. I said, yeah. So what did 0 say to 8? Nice belt. And they like stand up and they cheer and they laugh. And my husband's like, that joke's not funny. And I said, it is. It's so funny. Okay.
Yeah, that. Students, I'm with you. Okay, for those of you listening.
So they'll laugh, and then some days they're like, "Miss, a joke," and I'll tell them, and they just stare at me. I'm like, "That was the joke." They're like, "Oh, you got it." Like, I think you guys are just trying to delay learning today, but it's fine because you're making me feel good.
That's good. Yeah, laughter is so important. Thank you for sharing those right things. And for those of you listening, I asked about these right things because go in. If you ever hear me say go in is being consistent, doing the right things that allow for you to achieve the wins that you've defined for your life, so that you can live out your greatest story. And so, I know that teachers have to have some things that they're being consistent in, and because the win is probably always to make the best impact on the student. So thank you for sharing those. Now we have another list. This is the list of things she cannot live without as a teacher. Earl Grey tea?
Yes. I'm not a coffee person. I'm a tea person. Every morning I start with tea. And the kids are always like, Miss, did you have your tea today? You're a little... I'm like, no, I didn't. I forgot. And so I prefer hot tea, but I do have to do the cold tea sometimes, or I've like set it down somewhere and I can't remember.
Yeah.
But every morning, Earl Grey tea.
Earl Grey tea. Sonic pick-me-ups.
Yes. Sometimes I'm like, man, today's rough. Planning period, Sonic run. I'll go get Sonic drinks. Or like if we're having a bad day, I'm like, okay, everybody, send me your Sonic drinks. I'll be back in 5.
Now, what are you getting from Sonic? What's your drink of choice?
I do. Right now, it's a cherry Diet Coke with real cream.
Oh. Like, is that like the same cream that would be in cream soda? Cream? Oh, okay.
It's like real stuff.
You got to float.
Without it being an official float, without the ice cream, it's healthy. Or maybe.
That is good. So is the cream that they're putting in it like heavy whipping cream?
I don't know. I think it's like a special Sonic. I'm convinced that it's like when the ice cream melts, it's that.
Oh, really? It's
I don't
like
know if that's
the
really true or
hovering
not,
of.
but it's just like
Have you ever had that?
it's real cream, but I don't think it's heavy whipping cream because I try to remake it at home and it's not the same.
It's not the same. Okay.
It's the Sonic Ice too, I think.
My mom is in the room and she said she's gonna try it. So
It's delicious.
let me know what happens when you try
Add
it,
it to
Mom.
anything. It's
Maybe
great.
we need to try it because we're gonna need to pick me up when we go. I have to go to Bartlesville tonight, so may need to pick me up for that. Presentation clicker? Is that your
Yes.
jam? Oh, the
little
okay,
thing.
yes.
So that way I'm not like tied down to my computer. I can walk around. And at the beginning of the year, a lot of kids haven't seen one before, and so they're like, "It changed." I'm like, "What's happening? I wasn't ready." Then it'll change again, and I'm like, "What's happening? Who's doing it? Who did it? Who hacked my stuff? Come on, guys, what's going on?" They're like all looking around. I'm like, "Is it you? You did it. What did you do? How'd you change it?" Like, I don't know. I'm like, "It's this, guys. Don't worry, it's fine."
That's fine. That's just another thing. Like they wouldn't even. Yeah. Who would ever think it? Like, yeah, they don't know about a clicker. Nearpod, what is that?
So that's my technology program. So
Okay.
it's the way I can do all of my presentations. Then I push it to the kids' computers. And so then I see it on my screen. I can change it on all of theirs, but then they can write directly into the program and it sends it to my teacher tablet and I can see all of their answers. I can project it on the board. I can share out their funny comments. Like it's amazing.
Wow.
So shout out to technology.
Nearpod, yes. Nearpod. Purple pens, particularly Energel Pentel.
Intel ones, yes.
Is that your jam?
It is. Because how terrifying. I don't know if your teachers, did they grade in the red ink? And this was
Yes,
a thing that my
yes,
mom taught
yes,
me that
I
I
was
really liked
early.
from her. Like, just red just has that bad, even if it's an A or a B minus, just that red ink. You're like, man, it's all over. I did horrible before you even see it. So I've just done purple.
How long did your
because
mom teach?
Probably like 20-ish years.
Okay.
Again. I don't
Maybe she
remember.
wasn't doing red pen back then, was she?
No, she would do purple. So I did her purple. She's the one that passed it on to me
Okay.
as that was my teaching gift, was a purple pen, and I've just kept with it. And
Yeah, if you saw purple,
everywhere,
you knew
like,
it was not
it's
good.
happy. It's
Yeah.
a happier color.
Purple.
Even if you did bad, it's purple.
Well, They probably don't know Prince, but Purple Rain is what I think of, and that is a good.
it's a good song.
That's a good vibe. Yeah, that's a good song. That's good vibes. Now your bonus is my teacher besties.
Yes. Because where would I be without my people that I can just
You
like with
gotta have
one look, we know. Or we're like, is so and so here today? When we're talking about students, we're like, just be ready. Be ready.
Because he or she is.
Be like, hold on, I need
he
to
or
close
she's
the
ready.
door. I just need to like breathe a minute. That it's just nice to have people that get it.
Yeah.
Because my husband will come home and be like, you won't believe what happened. Like, let me tell you. And he's like, okay, fix it mode. Well, why don't you do this? You can't.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what about that? I'm like, stop trying to fix it. Just listen. I don't know if you've seen Abbott Elementary
No.
or anything, but that has been the closest thing for me to be able to, I'm like, watch this show because it's all the things where it's like, if you it's a lot of common sense. Like common sense would fix a lot of the things that are struggling in education, I feel like. And so we always make jokes. But Abbott Elementary was the first time that I was like, wait, I can use this. And he would understand that, like, yes, to fix that, we should do this. But there's no funding, so you can't fix it. And I'm like, you would finally understand. And so it's nice to have the people that you don't have to explain why.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
not like,
Yeah.
yes, we try to be solution driven all the time. But you know what? Sometimes it's not possible, and you still just got to get it off your chest. So my teacher besties, whether
They
it
get
be
it.
ones that like we don't even work together anymore, and it's just like a group chat of like, guess what's happening? That we still talk, are the ones that like are in the hallway with me that we can make jokes and do everything to just make it lighter and make the bad days better. So
That's good. That's good. Well, that is awesome. I am so thankful for you. Is there any last shout outs, a word to encourage teachers that you just want to give?
I would just say it's been rough, that it will get better. The last few years, I know for us personally, it's been a little difficult coming out of COVID, working with different students, but they still need us. Like the need for education, the need for teachers, the need for that one role model in students' lives has not changed. It may look different now, And so we just have to keep trying to figure out what that looks like for us. But make sure that we're still taking care of ourselves as teachers a little bit too. That self-care part is important. But students still need that teacher.
Yeah, that's good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for hitting that play button for another episode of the Hetty Coleman Podcast, where I am on a mission to encourage 1 million teachers weekly. And as always, go win.